Okay.
Yeah.
That's why I'm moving out to Antioch.
Oh, really?
Yeah. $450 for the room.
Damn.
No brainer. I just
live.
It's like, really, it's like, you know, I'm gonna be on the road so much to where it's like, why the hell would I pay? It's gonna be more like a storage unit this year, you know?
Yeah.
Which is great.
Are y'all getting ready to go back out for a long stint?
Just for like 2 weeks. Okay. It's kind of weird because we got like 2 weeks, then we have a week off, then another week on, then another 2 weeks off, then another 2 weeks on, and then we have to record an album, and then Europe, and yeah, so it's gonna be a big year.
That's amazing.
Which I'm sure you're probably gonna ask about anyway.
Yeah. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the Nashville Artist Podcast. I'm Jordan, and today Neil Jones is here.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Yeah. Where you're from? Cookeville, Tennessee, right?
Cookeville, Tennessee, born and raised.
Did you live there up until moving here?
Yep. Yeah, I was born in 91 and I moved here in, what was it? 2011, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you'd been here that long.
Yeah. Well, actually, when I came out here, I wasn't even trying to play music. I was just tired of my hometown, so.
Oh, really?
They were like, oh, yeah, did you move out to Nashville to do the whole music thing? I'm like, no. But I just kind of ended up doing it anyway, so.
Wow. Did you, do you have any siblings or?
I have one older brother, and he plays music as well, but he's entertaining this whole small, tiny home living thing. He's not He's not pursuing the music. He's just...
Minimal.
Yeah, minimalistic. That's the whole thing he's trying to do.
Nice. Where does he live now?
Cookeville.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he actually, it's kind of wild. He took a boat. He built a tiny home on a boat, and he took it all the way down to Louisiana, starting in Nashville.
Wow.
So, crazy trip. Took him about 2.5 months.
And it made it down there and back?
Somehow.
Wow.
You go over the Mississippi, and you see an 8-foot wide pontoon boat, and you think about, you're like, no way. No way I would do that.
Does it just have like a little outboard motor?
Yep. Him and my cousin went down there, and one steered the engine, and one made sure they didn't run into a barge.
Wow.
I'm just glad he didn't die.
Yeah. That's hilarious. So I remember you telling me like your mom also plays music, right?
Yeah.
Is that how like you got started in music, or?
Yeah, I would say so because, well, my dad's side, my dad was adopted, so we don't really know much about his bloodline, but definitely my mom's side of the family was always very musical. And so my mom, it's kind of funny because it's like a very Polish family. And so lots of everything you would think about, it's like sausage and accordions every time I go down to Texas. And I'm actually going there in a couple of days too to visit them. But so my mom, 2 of her sisters, my grandma and great grandma all play accordion.
Wow.
And then I have my uncle plays guitar, a cousin that plays drums, another cousin that plays bass, an uncle that plays fiddle. So like I remember when I was a kid going down there, you know, we'd always just have like these family jams and stuff. And it's definitely what got me into it.
Nice. And so you started on guitar?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How old were you like when you started playing guitar?
12 years old.
Okay.
And it's funny because people are like, you know, what got you into music? And you know, they like to think it's like some like romantic story, you know, of this and that. But really what happened was my brother was playing guitar, and he had a Squire Bullet Stratocaster kind of, you know, cheap guitar, $75 guitar, really just a hunk of trash with strings on it. And he was like, you want to learn guitar? And I was like, no. He's like, well, if you learn guitar, I'll give you this guitar. And I was like, okay. It's as simple as that. I didn't really care about playing music. I was just like, that looks cool. I'm 12 years old. Yeah, it looks rad, you know. But then it ended up falling in love with it, of course. But
nice. So, like, did you like listen to a lot of like guitar player music and be like, oh, I really like them, or like?
Man, when I got into it, I was all about the '60s rock. I was Zeppelin, Hendrix, you know, all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I think my brother definitely got me into like roots-based music. You know, over the course of time. When I turned 18, I started playing banjo and picked up a little bit of dobro, and then eventually got into lap steel and pedal steel.
Wow.
So the natural progression anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep going to newer and new stringed instruments. So you started out on guitar and then eventually got to banjo, and so pedal steel is a later development in your...
For sure. So I've been playing steel for about 5.5 years now.
Wow.
Almost 6 years. And, you know, I kind of like flirted with the idea of kind of picking up a steel guitar because I was playing in a honky tonk band and I was playing guitar, and I had a little 6-string lap, and they were really big on this band called BR549.
Oh yeah.
You know, Chuck Mead and those guys, and which they had a great following through the 90s. You know, they did Roberts, Cherokee Boogie, and, you know, all their good songs. And so I got listening to it, and like Donnie Heron, who was the steel guitar player for that band, I just remember like the way like the steel cut through the mix and the tone that it had. I was just immediately hooked. And then I went and saw Chris Scruggs, who filled in for this sometimes. And I saw him play steel guitar one night down at Stone Fox when it was still around.
Oh, yeah.
And so I saw him play, and literally 2 days later I bought my first 8-string lap steel, and then bought a double neck, and then eventually got into the pedals.
Nice. That's awesome. So 5 years of pedal steel, and you were like, well, this instrument will probably go further in Nashville, or like...
You know, I kind of got lucky with it because it's a very in-demand instrument, and, you know, it's so difficult to play that not a lot of people play it, or play it well for that matter, you know. So luckily it's in demand, and I, you know, just happened to fall in love with the instrument, get a bunch of work because of it. Yeah, I started playing it about 5.5 years ago, and I always make the joke, people ask me how hard it is to play steel, and I always say the same thing. I say, it takes a year to sound bad. So people are like, well, how long have you been playing? I said, 5 years, so I'm okay now. Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Both knees are operating it too, right?
Right. So, yeah, so the lap steel was the predecessor to the pedal steel, where back in the old days, in the 40s and 50s, you hear on like Hank Williams recordings and all that stuff that people were using the C6 tuning. It's like a Hawaiian tuning, and that's where the steel came from, was Hawaii. And it came over and kind of like somehow bridged into country music and swing music in Texas, and, you know, kind of made its way to Nashville and that whole sound. And, you know, if you hear old records like Carl Smith, Hank Williams, Webb Pierce, and all those guys, you're going to hear that 6 tuning, and that's actually a Hawaiian tuning. But it's also geared very well for like swing music and jazz, and you can play a lot of blues on it too. But over the course of time, so guys were taking their bar, you know, you play it with a slide, and guys would start taking their bar and they would be slanting it to make these chords. They were trying to figure out, you know, well, how can you get all these voicings that you want and have accessibility? So then they started putting double necks together, and then triple necks, and then quadruple necks, crazy enough. And you'll see these old videos like Buddy Merrill and these guys on these old shows in like the late 40s. And, you know, they're playing these guitars, and they're like, have their arms stretched out like Frankenstein, you know, trying to play this guitar, you know, that's like 3 feet in front of their body, you know. So how pedal steel came around was because guys were trying to figure out, well, how could we do this without having all this crazy, having 4 necks and doing all these bar slants and all these things. So there's a guy, I think Bud Isaacs was probably the guy that was responsible for it. And I'm sure there's somebody that's going to listen to this podcast and maybe be like, oh no, is this guy or that guy? But as far as I know, Bud Isaacs was the first guy to kind of bring it into the pedal steel realm. And the first pedal that came around on the pedal steel was one pedal that would bend up 2 intervals of your 1 chord and bring it up to a 4 chord. And you'll hear it in a recording, an old Webb Pierce recording, slowly. I think it was 1953 that it came out. And so over the course of time, you know, guys would just be bringing these things into their garage and being like, okay, well, that works all right, but if I put this spring here and this rod here, oh, if I did this and did that, well, maybe this will work better. You know, kind of blossomed into what it is today. So, yeah, to answer your question, my pedal steel is a double neck, and it has 8 pedals, and it has 7 knee levers underneath it.
Wow.
So it's a machine.
It's like a drum set for guitar.
It's a lot to take in. You know, it's the way I always describe pedal steel to guitar players is whenever you make a bar chord on a guitar, you know, you lay your finger across your index finger, and then your other 3 fingers will build a chord. Well, you can think of your bar on a steel guitar, the tone bar, as that index finger. It's just making a bar, but you're in an open tuning. So in order to create these other chords, you're going to hit pedals and knee levers to create the chords instead of using your fingers like you would on a guitar. So it's just like a completely different way of kind of thinking about it. Because when you press a pedal on a pedal steel, you're actually changing the tuning of the entire instrument when you press that pedal or move that knee lever over.
Wow, so how do you tune it once and then like you tune it all the time?
No, you tune it your whole entire life. You're tuning in your nightmares. Yeah, so actually the way you tune it, so you're going to tune an open string to whatever it needs to be. Like say the B's, you know, I'll tune the B up, and then I want to raise that B up to C sharp. So I'll hit the pedal, and then up behind the bridge of the guitar, there's these little nylon tuners, and you take a hex wrench and you go back there, and then you tune it to where it wants to bend up to or down to, whatever it is. So you tune the guitar pretty much twice. First you tune it open, then you go back and tune what the pedals bend those pitches to.
Do you do that every night of a show, like right before you play?
I have an Emmons guitar, and it's really great the pedals are great about staying in tune. So like a lot of times what I'll do before a show is I'll tune all the pedals at my house. So then I come to the show and I just tune the guitar open and not worry about it. And then, of course, if you hear something sounds funky in between a song, you can fine tune something, but it's a whole lot. I feel like the more I talk about steel guitar to people, the more complicated it gets, Well,
I mean, the more you talk about it, you're only going deeper and deeper, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And then, there's things, too, with the guitars, they have so much tension where, the guitars, whenever you press a pedal, will even flex the body of the guitar to where some certain strings will go sharp or flat by, 4 cents. So then they have what they call compensators on them, and you can, if your guitar is making a string go flat, well, you can put another rod on there and compensate that slack that got made. It's crazy, the intricacies of it. There's no such thing as a perfectly in-tune steel guitar. The thing is, you just tune it to the best of your ability, and tune it to how you play. Depending on what inversions you use more than others, it will depend on how you tune it. And you're always going to tune something by ear, There's guys, they'll be like, oh no, get the strobe tuner and get this and that, but it's not right, you just kind of have to get it as close as you can and then follow your intuition a little bit.
Yeah, it's not a perfect instrument. It's not supposed to be super polished or has to sound a perfect way. It's kind of sounds better if it has that twang or imperfection to it, I guess.
Yeah, it's naturally got that, but you get as close as you can and you call it a day.
Nice.
Say whatever.
Did you ever play any bands in high school or middle school?
Yeah, I did. So I used to play, I was telling you, I was into kind of psychedelic rock, 60s rock, and I was also equally into ska and skater punk stuff. I was a skater kid growing up, and so yeah, I was in bands, and it was anywhere between jam bands and kind of ska oriented bands. We used to always, there was a couple of buddies that had this little warehouse, and they would have mini ramp half pipes set up in it, and we'd go to the top. We had a little thing up there, and we would have shows and play punk rock and skateboard and just be little hellions,
Oh yeah. And
there wasn't much to do in Cookeville, so we had to entertain ourselves somehow.
Playing Tony Hawk and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it was a jam band, and this was in middle school?
Yeah. Well, more towards high school probably. I started playing when I was 12, but I don't really think I got into playing with other people until I probably got into high school.
Right. You have to have those years to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I had a friend down the street, my buddy Lee. He lived 3 doors down. Maybe that's how the band was created. But yeah, we used to every day after high school, I'd get off the bus, and first thing we'd do is go over to his house and play music until they told us to shut up. They never told us to shut up though. We just kept doing it. And that's kind of how you have to cut your teeth, I feel like, just
right. Mess up a lot.
I know a lot of people, they call them living room players or bedroom players. Sit there in their house and practice and try to get everything perfect. But the best practice is going out and playing with people, learn how to play with other people.
Yeah, and that live experience of having people just witness you on the fly. Did you ever play in church or anything?
No. Well, I grew up Catholic, so we had an organ, and that was it.
Okay.
It was pretty much just like a funeral service with an organ in the background. It was a very traditional Catholic church.
And you, did you go to college in Cookeville?
No, I actually didn't go to school.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Whenever I got out of high school, I think every musician kind of thinks of what could I have done different, in the past, and woulda, coulda, shoulda, I'd be in a better place if this and that happened. I don't really think so. I got to thinking about that and wishing I had gone to Belmont or somewhere, music school somewhere. And, really, I think our life experiences, the experiences I had and the kind of hardships I had through my early 20s, with jobs I hated or this and that, my life experiences are what pushed me to play steel guitar in the first place. To where, if I went to music school, I probably just went and did guitar or banjo and never would have thought about the steel guitar, so you can't look back and have regret about it, it's just naturally what happened. Hey, it still worked out,
Still worked out.
I got a job miraculously.
Yeah. So how long have you been with American Aquarium?
I've been with them a little over 2 years now.
Okay. And did you just like through the scene meet this person and then they're like, yeah, you should play with these guys?
Yeah, and that's how Nashville works. You know, it's a great town for networking, and I know a lot of people are kind of apprehensive to move into Nashville. They think it's real cutthroat, and it is tough to get paid. You know, I mean, you got to really work to make money. You know, on Broadway and everything. But yeah, I got to meeting folks around town, and I was down at Honky Tonk Tuesday, and I met a steel guitar player named CJ Calandria, and whenever I got the call from BJ of American Aquarium, I was down in Texas visiting family. And apparently, I guess there were 2 steel players that BJ had reached out to, and they've both given my recommendation. And he gave me a call, and he said, hey, you know, I got about 19 songs. We got 10 days of tour. Do you want to come out here and kind of like an audition, if you will? You know, and we'll go out for 10 days, you know, if you like it, cool. If you don't, cool. If we like it, cool. If we don't, cool. Whatever, no hard feelings. And went out on a 10-day run and came back, and he said, you want to be in the band? And I said, hell yeah, I do. That was fun. So,
yeah.
And everything's been great. I mean, it's really a great group of guys. It's a 6-piece band: organ, guitar, bass, drums, steel guitar, and lead vocals. And you know, it's the first band I've been in that I feel like all these guys are adults, and a lot of people think of like the backstage life or the tour life as like all these crazy parties and, you know, whatever, you know, all that stuff that comes with that lifestyle. But really, I mean, the most wild we get is like on the tour bus, we play poker and we might get a little drunk, but you know, it's not really parties. It's more of just 6 grown-ass men with wives and kids at home, except for me, of course. But yeah, it's a healthy tour environment.
That's good.
Yeah.
Is it pretty luxurious? Do you have like pretty nice bus you'll ride on?
Man, my boss BJ, he goes over the top to make us all comfortable as possible, and they are. We always have brand new buses, you know, anywhere between 2017 and 2020 buses. I think this year we have a 2020 bus, and
it's a Prevo, I'm assuming.
Yeah, Prevo.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we won't do buses. Like all this year we're doing buses, but sometimes we'll do hotel tours and the hotel tours as well. I mean, you know, he doesn't get the motel late for us. You know, like we have. I mean, honestly, like I sleep better in some hotels than I do in my own bed. And the accommodations, you know, I mean, he pays well, and we also get, you know, per diem. And, you know, and the morale, he always tries to keep the morale high. Like, we were down in Mexico one time, and he bought us all rented us dune buggies for the day. We all went across the desert, and my little Cookville inner redneck just blossomed out there. Like, I was trying to turn that thing over and scared the shit out of those guys. But, you know, he's always doing that. Like, we were in one tour, we were down in Texas, and he took us to, like, one of the best steakhouses in Texas. So, you know, I'm really appreciative of him. You know, he goes above and beyond, and because I know other people, you know, that play for other bands and big tours too. I know I've got a good deal going, you know, comparatively.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. I mean, being out on the road is everything. Like, that's not going well. It's a rough life. Yeah,
and you know, and that's another thing too, is like, you know, you gotta enjoy the people you're on the road with, and you know, you just end up miserable. But you know, there's no resentment, there's no competition. You know, it's all we all really do get along, you know, very well.
Team effort.
It is. It really is. It's a great group of guys.
Nice. And so you said, what, 8 years ago you moved to Nashville?
Yeah.
2011? Well, that's 10 years ago.
You know, it might have been 2012. Gosh, I don't even know. I'd have to look back in my computer or something. Yeah, it's somewhere 9 to 10 years, yeah.
So when you first moved here, you were in the music scene or like trying to do music. What were you doing?
Well, actually, I was working, so back in Cookville, I was working for a food distributor. I was driving forklift for a company, doing night shifts. And so I did the same thing when I moved to Nashville, but I was working for Cisco food distributors out Centennial area. And I worked there for 3 years, close to 3 years whenever I first moved to Nashville. You know, it was a great job on paper, you know. I made great money. It's the best money I'd ever made, you know. But, you know, I just kind of ended up hating that job and didn't have a life, didn't know anybody, you know. And it was kind of, you know, I think it takes a little bit of those times, you know, to like question what you're doing, you know. And eventually I was like, you know, I gotta change something here, you know. I don't enjoy doing this. And so I got out of doing that and got a job at an airport, at the National Airport over here, cleaning and waxing airplanes.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was like a 1099 type job, and me and my brother would go in there, and we did Delta Airlines, American Airlines, and wax on, wax off all day long.
Dude, how long does it take to do one plane?
Very long if you got only a group of 5 guys. But we had these contracts, and they would last, we had a month or 2 to clean them, depending on the contract. So,
good God.
Yeah, it really wasn't that bad of a job. For me, I would just put on a set of headphones and just
podcast music at all.
Yeah, whatever, like, if there's not somebody breathing over my neck, a boss, I'm like, oh, this is great, I love this.
Yeah.
And really, because I was working night shifts at the Cisco, and that was the worst part about it to me, is that, I was awake working my ass off out in this warehouse, whenever people were doing all these fun things, and I was asleep, during the day, and I just didn't get to meet folks like that. So got out of that work, and I got into cleaning, waxing airplanes, and then from there I went to another 1099 job doing stagehand work.
Yeah, stage one.
And that's it was Crew One. Crew One Productions is the name of the company, and we did shows. We would do like Bridgestone Arena, all the places around town. We did a lot of conventions. We did like festivals like Bonnaroo, and I drove forklift for that company too for quite some time. And that's really whenever I got to meeting more folks like in the music, because everybody was there for the same reason. They were all like musicians who were trying to, do something on the side, and make a living, but try to get into music. It was either that or just some drunk that needed some, beer money, but sometimes they're one and the same too,
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely, that's what got me into meeting folks, and it kind of gave me the freedom because it was a 1099 job. I could book stuff that I wanted and not book stuff that I didn't want to do, and eventually making the transition over to the full-time music. And it ain't for the faint of heart, it's not easy, but
Crew One or
just
transitioning,
just doing that transition. Yeah. And it's hard. You gotta be honest with yourself, and you ain't ready yet. You still got to keep this roof over your head, but sometimes you got to take that gig, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to keep this roof over my head, but I know this is a great opportunity. It's a great networking opportunity, and it only pays $25, but we're going to give it a shot, and that's what it takes,
Yeah, you never know what it'll lead to.
If you think you're working hard enough in Nashville, do about 50% more,
That's true.
Yeah, just hell, give it 100% more. Yeah, there's folks that move to town and they get, really, I don't know what the word is, disheartened about it.
Disencouraged?
They come out, they're discouraged, and, it's, like I said, you got to work really hard. You got to really push yourself out here, and especially if you're not playing it. Like, I got lucky because I'm playing steel guitar, which is in demand, and, like I said, nobody really plays it, but, man, if you want to play in this town, you just got to work your ass off. You really do. Mm-hmm. Nothing comes easy, and, I think that's, like, some people get upset, too, about their music degrees. I got this piece of paper.
It's not a guarantee.
It's not a paper that says you got your hired. It's a paper that says you're qualified. But, you got to get out there and pay your dues. That's the phrase that everybody uses.
Yeah, they call it a 7-year city. Like, it takes 7 years to, like, get yourself to where you're trying to go.
And that's definitely the story with me.
Communicating with people. And
whenever I first started getting playing, in order to get paid, I was playing a lot of gigs out of town. Because, especially with original bands, it's hard to get paid in Nashville sometimes. And so there's this band of guys I played with from back home in Cookville, and I tell you, man, I played every rat-infested dive bar north and south of 40 all the way across the state. And for 2 years, that's all I did was play, old outlaw country music with this band. And I remember folks saying, why don't you play more in Nashville? It's like, well, pay me, hell, I'll come out. But I ended up doing all these weekend runs, with these guys, and that's kind of how I cut my teeth on the steel for sure, and did all my embarrassing stuff outside of town. So. Whenever I actually learned the instrument, come to town, I'm like, all right, here we go.
Right. That's awesome. What would you say is biggest thing you've learned living in Nashville?
Man, if I had to give any advice, something I learned, have a good attitude. There's a lot of people that, I don't know, there's a lot of great players out there, but I've met some folks that, really get a little beat up about this town. And have a good attitude, be a good hang, If you want to get out here and play music with folks, just be a good guy, And that goes, everybody in this town can play. Everybody's a good player.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and be somebody that people want to be around.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the ticket.
Yeah, it doesn't really, I mean, you can be good, you could be okay, but if you've got stellar personality, chill, and you encourage and bring others up, that'll only make your success.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to that, you get to build a community because of that. I've really got, some of the best friends in the world that I've met out here. And, people like to say that it's cutthroat and this and that. And I really don't find that to be true, really. It's with my thing, with traditional country music kind of scene that I'm in, everybody that I work with are all good friends of mine. And we really, we bring each other up. We don't cut each other's throats, so to speak.
So, like, what would you say to someone thinking about moving here? Like, what advice would you give them if they're like, I want to play music, I want to come here, other than what you just said? What is, like, the first thing?
Number one, don't move to East Nashville. I know everybody wants to do that, man, but you go somewhere affordable, I mean, people move out here and, and you get an apartment and, you're doing everything you can, at a job at a dive bar, busting tables or something, and you're working 50 hours a week just to keep this roof over your head, I know it's not easy, but find you accommodations that aren't going to make you go broke. But the biggest advice I think, already covered was you got to get out here and you really got to work, it's not for the faint of heart. I mean, there's been times whenever I was working, Bridgestone, I'd get off, 2, 3 in the morning, and then I go do an 11 a.m. gig, and then I go back at night and do another Bridgestone show. I feel like my life is a series of naps. Like, I don't even know if I've ever got a full 8 hours in the last 2 years. I hope that's not true, but if you're going to come to Music City and play music, I think you just got to come with this attitude, like, take no prisoners. I mean, you're just going out there and getting it, If you think it's cute and, I'm going to try that out, you might not hack it, you got to come with the attitude, like, I'm going to make this thing happen.
Yeah, it's
You can't take no for an answer.
It's do or die.
It is.
Yeah.
But, and it does pay off, though, over the course of time. Once you do the hard work and pay your dues, it will pay off for you.
Definitely. So, like, for you, was your main goal, like, to get into a band that you could be an original member of, or did you want to be, like, freelance, or either one work for you, or like?
That's funny you asked that. Initially, I don't think I really intended to try and be like a member of a band. I was more interested, I wanted to play honky-tonk music. I love country music. I love all types of music, but I really fell in love with country music, and especially swing music, country swing. And so really what I wanted to do was break into, what I'm in now is, I play places like Robert's Western World, Honky Tonk Tuesday, Layla's, any bar that harbors, that style of music. That's really what I was focused on. I was kind of interested in touring. I didn't know if I would like it, so I was just like, if a band comes around, I'll try it out. And it did, American Aquarium, gave me the call, and I was like, well, let's try this thing out. And, man, I fell in love with it. I love traveling. I'll tell you what I love doing is eating food. So, man, that's the best thing about the road for me.
The food. Diversity of food.
Oh, and just it's something about the foods, the culture, learn about the different cultures of the people in the area. And, people are so hospitable to musicians on the road. And it's really like a way more positive experience than I kind of figured it would be. You would think it'd be like camping or something, and just you get tired of it. And, there's stuff on the road that's not fun, things happen that aren't fun, but for the most part, I'm really happy that I did become a member of American Aquarium. I think it's been a great experience so far.
Definitely, that's awesome. So, where's your favorite place to play in Nashville?
Man, that's a tough question. I really love Honky Tonk Tuesday nights at the American Legion Post 82.
Dude, that is fun.
And I know you recently went to your first time there, and it's driven for dancing. I mean, the whole thing exists because people want to go two-step. And I mean, that's why country music exists, is back in the day, whenever it came along, is to make people dance and have a good time. I just love what they're doing down at Honky Tonk Tuesday. They're really preserving the tradition of what made Music City famous. It's this style of music that we're playing. But it might be a hard tie with Robert's Western World, which I just started playing this year. And I mean, it's just that next tier. I mean, the folks that I play with every day on stage whenever I'm up there it's just a whole different tier of musicians. You know, all these guys that, you know, I'm doing the Opry here soon for my first time, and I'm super excited about. But you know, these guys, they played the Opry a million times. You know, and it's just when you get to be on a stage with that, it pushes you to be a better musician. You know, and you learn so much with interacting with those people, and it's just special. You know, I mean, if you'd have told me 5 years ago I'd be playing on Roberts 2-3 nights a week, I told you you're crazy. I told you you're crazy if I could make a living playing this instrument. So, but it is really special.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I first met you, you've just kept your head down and just like next gig, whatever. Doesn't pay, fine, whatever, next gig.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it just seemed like you were working your tail end off. I mean, you come from one practice rehearsal to another practice rehearsal, and
yeah, doubles, triples, all of it, man.
Yeah, it's inspiring for me to see. I mean, like I said, I remember when I first met you, and here you are now, and I've watched your journey scale upwards. Yeah, which is very exciting. I mean, it's always...
You see me go from bad to decent.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember you were like, at one point, I think we were jamming or something, and you were like, man, if shit doesn't shape up, I might be going back to Cookville, because you were like slaving away at Crew 1.
Yeah.
And you're like, I gotta get the hell out of this.
Yeah, I thought that was hard, and then I went through a pandemic.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
God.
That was tough.
That tested everyone.
I remember my mom called me at the beginning of the pandemic, and she said, if you ever want a place to stay, you got a free room over here. And I was like, Mom, you're gonna have to pry me out of this town. I ain't leaving.
Right.
And somehow I made it.
Yeah.
Made it through the pandemic. Can't believe it.
Right. So you, like, when did you kind of get through all of that? Like, started to play gigs again, like things were steady again for you?
I remember there was the first initial 2 months of the pandemic, literally nothing. No gigs, nothing. And then, I'd pick up one gig, or I'd pick up one session, and it's socially distanced, and nobody'd show up, so you don't make any money anyway, because nobody's there anyway. Gosh, and then it started to pick up a little bit. There's starting to look like a light at the end of the tunnel before that big second wave, in the fall or whatever it was. And I remember, I was playing a show with some friends, and then the next day they were like, well, hey, the bass player was around this guy who was around this guy, and then 2 nights ago this guy was around this guy, and then all of a sudden you had 5 gigs over the course of 2 weeks that just immediately cancel because everybody plays with everybody in this town. So, oh, well, you're around that bass player. Oh, well, I played a gig with that guitar player that was with him, and then you draw the dots and you're like, well, I guess the safest thing to do is just not to play these gigs. So I don't know. I mean, I got lucky. I had some money saved up. I got a little bit of work here and there. The great state of Tennessee was generous enough to give me some unemployment money, and I just powered through it. Yeah. It taught me how to save money too. Gosh, I mean, I didn't spend a dime if I didn't have to.
Yeah, you gotta be super frugal.
Yeah.
Well, cool, dude. I guess I'll ask you one more question here before we wrap everything up. What is something that you love that's absurd?
Something that I love that's absurd?
No.
I don't know. I love tacos way too much in an absurd fashion.
Yeah, what would make an absurd taco for you?
Well,
like eggs on your taco?
Well, I've eaten all kinds of tacos. Yeah, that is for sure.
Tacos.
Well, one story, we were going through, we were doing this whole Western tour. We did literally every single state out west. We started in, oh God, it was a whole mess. I'll try to make this quick. So I woke up one day, we had a thing in Dallas, or Fort Worth at Magnolia Motor Lounge. And I get a call from BJ, and he said, hey, what's going on with your flight? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. You just woke me up. And he's like, oh, well, just get down to the airport. Your flight canceled. I'll have you a flight whenever you get there. So I literally just crawled out of bed, went immediately to the airport with my guitar, and had a flight by the time I showed up there. Had a layover in some Midwestern, I don't know, middle of nowhere, wherever it was. And then showed up to the gig an hour or 15 minutes before we were supposed to play. Then all this stuff happened. We had this merch guy that got mad and quit because of something or the other. And then we had a tour bus driver that wasn't qualified to pull a trailer, so his wife had to pull a trailer in a Yukon. And then the transmission blew in Amarillo. And all the while, all this craziness was happening, I was just eating food. I was just like eating tacos, you know. So like the first 3 days after we got our second bus, after the transmission blew, we stopped by this place and we had some really great tacos. And Shane, the guitar player, he was like, "Man, you really like tacos, don't you?" And I was like, "Dude, I could eat tacos every day of my life." He's like, "Bet you can't." I was like, "What do you want to bet?" He's like, "Bet you $25 you can't eat tacos from a Mexican restaurant every day of this tour." And it was a 21-day tour. I said, "Game on, dude, let's go." So he knew I had him, and it was a great tour, man. I mean, the Mexican food is completely different from Arizona to New Mexico to California, Denver, Salt Lake, all these places. They're all like their own style, you know. And so we got up to Haley, Idaho. It was the 20th day of tour. I had 2 more days to eat tacos and win this $25 in glory. And apparently Haley, Idaho is a very Catholic Christian town. And it was a Sunday and every single Mexican restaurant was closed.
Taco Bell.
And I don't think it would have counted. I don't even know if there was a Taco Bell in that town either, at least in walking distance from where we were. Whatever the case, I wasn't able to make that taco happen. And I came up to Shane, I was like, "You know, you win by default." And he's like, "Yeah, you had me." And I was like, "Here's your $25, you win fair and square." And he's like, "All right." He's like, "I won't make that stupid bet again."
Damn, so yeah, you would have sealed the deal.
Yep. It takes years of training eating tacos like that.
What's your favorite taco combination?
Man, the classic carne asada, cilantro onion, a good cremosa on top of it. Call it a day.
Yeah, are you a big guacamole guy?
No, I love avocados though. I eat an avocado every day for breakfast, every single day.
Wow, it's really healthy.
Yeah, well, it makes you feel good. I'm starting to get old. I just turned 30 years old, and I know that ain't too old, but I'm starting to feel it. You know, I need something in the morning. I grew up eating hot garbage all my life, biscuit and gravy and high sodium breakfast. You know, I just can't do that anymore.
Right, it catches up with you.
Yeah, here in the South, we take our feelings and we smother them in gravy. You know? Yeah. We're gonna deep fry this and smother it in gravy, and then you won't have any more problems.
Yep. So, just so I get this on here, you're playing at Grand Ole Opry when? July 14th?
July 13th.
13th.
Yep.
Nice.
And that's our debut performance. We also have a show. So actually our first show, we're starting on June 22nd. We're going out for a 2-week run, starting in Nashville's at the Basement East on June 22nd. So you got to come out.
Yeah, Basement East, right down the street. I'll be there.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. Can't wait.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, I'm glad you got to come on here. This is great.
Man, appreciate you having me.
Appreciate everything that you've just said. What I've absorbed from your presence here has been great.
Oh man, pleasure to be here.
Where can they find you on your social media?
Yeah, well, if you want to find American Aquarium, of course, you can look at AmericanAquarium.com. You can find American Aquarium on any of the streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, all the social media. And then if you want to find me on social media, it's kind of a spin-off of my name. My name's Neil Jones. So on Instagram, it's Steele Jones, Steele_Jones. And if you go on Facebook, you can find me at Neil Jones, NEILJONES.
Awesome.
So take a look, stay posted.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for being on here.
Yeah, appreciate you.